Aloha BHL from Hawaii. I'm JJ Dearborn, and I'm so honored to come back to BHL and serve this inspiring community as your new data manager. Many of you may know me from my previous positions working at the Ernst Mayr Library, the National Museum of Natural History at Smithsonian, and more recently at Harvard's Botany Libraries. In 2016, I left BHL to work on open data initiatives for the state of Massachusetts and the city of Boston, helping to open up public records for my fellow constituents. I learned a lot along the way, but I never stopped thinking about the importance of the work that BHL does. In fact, my work as a data librarian in civic tech gave me a unique perspective into just how special BHL is in this world of technology and data projects. BHL is a beacon of light, hope, and truth in today's sea of disinformation. And the people I've encountered who work on this project are truly in it for the right reasons. In my time away, I've watched BHL grow from a medium-sized network of science librarians into a global movement of informationists. This is incredibly heartening that what BHL stands for means something to so many people, and that the vision to inspire discovery through free access to biodiversity knowledge continues to spread and make good on its promise. I've come back to BHL because I would like to see our community mobilize over 500 years of data, biodiversity data, for our planet, now increasingly in peril. To do this work effectively, the data manager role is split between three important components, which gives coverage for each of our strategic goals in some way. I will be supporting Secretariat operations, new user engagement initiatives, and the core of my role will be focused on building out BHL's data management program. In today's presentation, I will cover these areas of work in more detail and talk about current and future developments for each. So let's start with Secretariat operations. There are many administrative duties the Secretariat performs behind the scenes to keep BHL running. An important component of the Secretariat's role is to provide the BHL Consortium with a suite of collaborative tools, maintain user logins for those tools, and also make documentation and guidelines available to facilitate staff and committee work. All of this can be collectively thought of as project management. And because BHL is a technology project with limited resources, to achieve our goals, we need to be strategic about what we work on and how we prioritize our work. For this reason and many others, we have decided to pilot the use of a popular project management methodology called Agile. Today, over 50% of technology projects use some version of Agile philosophy in combination with a corresponding framework called Scrum. This project management framework emphasizes continuous incremental improvement through small and frequent code release. So in this picture, you can see the difference between other types of project management methodologies like waterfall and Agile, which creates working pieces of code incrementally over time. So in Scrum, these small frequent releases of code are called sprints. Moving forward, the BHL tech team will be organizing their work in 1-month sprints and 6-month-long cycles. This means there are 12 sprints and 2 cycles per calendar year. During sprints, Gemini tickets will move through defined Scrum stages. These stages are called backlog, in sprint, in progress, testing, and closed, or some version thereof. The BHL tech team is now using the Gemini board view, which you see over here on the right, which allows us to visualize tickets moving through this basic workflow. And this is the workflow that all tickets will be moving through moving forward. Two other key concepts to remember in Agile methodology are epics and stories. Now, epics are simply large thematic pieces of work, and stories are those pieces of work broken down into smaller actionable tasks. And stories are also written from the perspective or point of view of the user. So here we see sort of work breakdown happening on the left, where you have your high-level goals, which would be outlined in BHL strategic plan. And then you might have a white paper or a blog piece describing some kind of proposal for work. And then that proposal for work might be defined as an epic or a thematic piece of work. And that thematic piece of work will be needing to be broken down further into these stories, which are essentially Gemini tickets. Now, a recent example of this work breakdown happening in BHL recently was goal 2.1D from the strategic plan, which was to improve global awareness and accessibility through third-party collaborations. Now, the members from the PIWG presented a business case on the BHL blog, touting the benefits of BHL's articles becoming discoverable through a third party called Unpaywall. Now, Unpaywall goes throughout the web looking for open versions of journal articles, which are often locked behind paywalls, and then surfaces those to users. Now, BHL realized through further investigation that Unpaywall requires articles to be served up as PDFs. And so we also realized that if we pre-generated our PDFs, it would really facilitate Unpaywall discovering these PDFs and serving them up through their browser extension. So all of that work went from a high-level goal and got broken down into smaller pieces of work to its final Gemini ticket, code 85658, which essentially asks the tech team to include pre-generated PDFs on the part page. So you can see how our high-level goals are now being broken down into smaller pieces of work until they can actually finally be done by the tech team. And this is just one example of breaking down goals into smaller epics, which then are broken down into stories. This work breakdown ensures that there's a translation piece between high-level thinking and what's actually happening on the ground. And the user story also ensures that the features that are being built for the BHL platform are centered around user needs. So how do we write a user story? Well, the formula for a user story is really quite simple. In the previous example that I just talked about with Unpaywall, the user story could have been, as a science researcher, I want BHL to pre-generate their PDFs so that I can discover articles from BHL using the Unpaywall extension in my browser. Essentially, you just want to tell who the user is, what they would like to do, and what the outcome of that action might be. I'd also like to take this moment to emphasize that Gemini tickets are records too. They document the collaborative work happening across the consortium, and paying attention to the metadata that you input in your Gemini tickets will really increase the likelihood of that ticket being prioritized and worked on by the BHL tech team. Just like a bib record, the most important element of any tech ticket is a good descriptive title. And if you're feeling really intrepid, you can try your hand at writing a user story. And this will help ground your feature request for the tech team in the user's needs. So the BHL tech team has updated their wiki page where you can find the official Scrum roles for each member codified, as well as our preferred communication channels. If you have any further questions about BHL project management evolution and this piloting of Agile, please check out our wiki. On the homepage, you will find our project management playbook and a recording that will go over all of the concepts that I just covered in more detail. So please feel free to look at the wiki and send any questions that you have my way. My main goal as BHL's newest Secretariat member and former project manager is to work hard to foster transparent and inclusive communications across the consortium that increase our collaboration between our committees and our partners, and of course, and our BHL's newest staff members who may not know exactly where to start. I'll end this part of the presentation with one of my favorite quotes from George Bernard Shaw, who stated that the single biggest problem in communication is the illusion that it has taken place. And that's really all that project management does, is it facilitates communication in a very specific way that helps work get done. So now let's move on to the core part of, or the main part of today's presentation, which is data management for BHL. So I want to start by saying, I know that many of us are not just librarians or technologists. Some of us are also naturalists and fierce lovers of all of our planet's creations. We are all working incredibly hard to understand and preserve our planet's biodiversity. And many of us have already started to realize that maybe 500 years of collective knowledge about life on Earth could be harnessed more effectively to move the needle towards safeguarding a livable future for all Earth's creatures, both big and small. As BHL staff, we know that information's journey to open access starts with digitization, but it certainly does not end there. There's so much data curation work and love that goes into increasing the availability of BHL's content to all the world, and we all have our role to play. As BHL's new data manager, I see my role as not only helping to improve the quality and quantity of BHL's data, but also ensuring that we deposit and disseminate that data in the most strategic places on the web for maximum impact. Earlier this month, some of you may have seen that I gave a talk for the Internet Archive where I likened digitization to a kind of information metamorphosis. And I came to, through my work with different BHL partners, I came to view the entire digitization process from physical book to digital object as one of open access rebirth. And the final stage of that metamorphosis is one of data genesis. Lots of data being generated at the point of digitization. And these data packages are the essential building blocks of BHL, and they are served up to our users in various ways. The exciting thing about BHL's data is that it can be repurposed, analyzed, shared with anyone, anywhere, at any time, so long as they have an internet connection. However, like most of the world's data, much of BHL's data is not being used to its fullest potential. In fact, over 80% of all data on the web today is considered dark data. And by some estimates, 93% of our data lives in unstructured formats and in siloed systems, which means it can't be used and it's inert. So uncorrected, unstructured OCR text, tabular data, locked in images, legacy metadata formats like MARC, and undescribed named entities are the various types of dark data in BHL. This unused and inert data in sum represents an untapped resource, which could truly transform human understanding. And I personally think it could be one of the keys to fostering universal bioliteracy for all humankind. So This is just an illustration here of one type of BHL dark data. It's the data that's locked in images. So as many of you know, BHL has digitized field notes, expedition logs, surveys, and lots of other one-of-a-kind unique materials. And many of those materials are handwritten. They lack OCR text, or they have uncorrected OCR text. And this material is an incredibly valuable source of climate, species, event sampling, and geolocation data. And there's vast quantities of this data locked in BHL and handwritten field notes that could be used to inform climate change research, which is obviously a very pressing issue for all of us. And so when we think of this dark data, we should really be thinking of it on a spectrum. The 5-star data grading scheme outlined by Tim Berners-Lee rates data's relative usefulness and openness. Now, 20 years ago, Tim shared his vision for the semantic web in the Scientific American. And in that article for the Scientific American, he describes a world where all the world's data is interlinked and interoperable. And to get there, he lays out 5 very simple principles or guidelines for us to follow. So he states that data should be on the web, data should be in machine-readable or structured data formats, data should be stored in non-proprietary formats, and data should use URIs to point to stuff being entities, and entities being things that we would like to describe in further detail and later search on. And then finally, he says that data should be linked with other data to provide context. So as BHL's data manager, I think a lot about our legacy catalog records and Internet Archive data dumps and how we can transform them into 5-star linked open data so that we can build out a growing semantic network of knowledge called the Global Knowledge Graph. And here's an image of that knowledge graph currently being built right now. So today, Tim's linked open data dream is actually becoming a reality. This knowledge graph shows 1,300 semantic repositories on the web, which are currently interlinked. And there's a tiny node that's being pointed to called Wikidata in that knowledge graph. It's just that one node actually contains 12.5 billion semantic data statements, which is an astounding amount of data. And the beauty about this particular node called Wikidata is that anyone can easily contribute to the growing extended neural network of human knowledge, including us. And what this means is that Wikidata can help BHL right now illuminate our dark data while also helping reimagine what user engagement might look like. Wikidata allows for data updates to occur in one place, and it pushes out to many, many other places on the web. You see, the idea for Wikidata was actually born out of a very pragmatic desire, which was to maintain synchrony between Wikimedia's universe of wikis. There's over 300 language editions of Wikipedia and a myriad of other sister projects, and manually updating articles in each of these editions whenever an instance of a statistic, figure, or fact changed about the world was inherently unsustainable. So now there's Wikidata, and when you update a figure or fact in Wikidata, it actually pushes out to all of the info boxes on these Wikipedia editions. But a lesser known fact is that Wikidata is also driving Google search results, and those knowledge graph panels that you see now often with your search results are actually composed of data from Wikidata. There's also, Wikidata is also used for virtual assistants like Alexa, Google Assistant, and Siri, who use Wikidata data. So this means that as BHL begins to load its data into Wikidata, we are now driving Google search results, and we are also able to surface BHL data on these ubiquitously used platforms. So according to Wikimedia Deutschland's communication manager, Elisabeth Giesman, Wikidata is the realization of the semantic web as dreamt of by Tim Berners-Lee. So besides Wikidata, there are so many exciting activities underway for BHL data management right now. As many of you know, I began working with BHL again in 2021 as a contractor. And one of the pieces of work I finished was to convert our old metadata requirements into an updated documentation and update all of the schema. So that work is now being reviewed by the tech and cataloging committees. And it will provide a guide for our BHL partners to provide high quality data to the BHL portal. The cataloging and tech committee also worked together in February, and they were able to harvest over 88,000 URIs from Wikidata to help disambiguate BHL author names, which many of you know is needs a lot of cleanup work. So these URIs are going to help us disambiguate those names and improve search for our users. BHL also joined the Wikibase stakeholder group in March. Right now I'm the rep, but anyone who is interested in attending a meeting is welcome to attend. Just let me know and I'll forward you the invite. And lastly, one of the things I'm really excited about is I'm working with a Harvard researcher to pilot a new workflow that will extract data from images of archival materials, field notes, expedition logs, and then hopefully deposit the subsequent data into biodiversity knowledge bases like GBIF and potentially Wikidata. We are also kicking off BHL's new transcription upload tool working group called, I'm affectionately calling TUTWIG. And they will be meeting for the first time May 24th. And the goal of this group is to help BHL partners get their transcriptions loaded into BHL's database and improve full text search, as well as scientific name recognition and taxonomic intelligence. So one of the really great things that's going to happen for BHL committees members is happening in October, and the BHL Secretariat will be sponsoring a 6-week-long Wikidata EDU course. And this course will be aimed at training and certifying BHL committee members to learn about linked open data concepts and the Wikidata ecosystem. So lots of really exciting things happening for data management. But I would like to wrap up the presentation by talking a little bit about user engagement and how that will factor into my role as well. As you know, we lost Grace Constantino, our former communications manager, last year, and I just want to applaud Grace for all of the amazing and incredible work she did over the years serving the BHL community. She did so much, and she is such an inspiration to me as a colleague and friend. And I just think she was an amazing person. So I want to end the presentation by honoring the work that Grace did and also talk about how are we going to reimagine user engagement and focus our energies as a consortium towards executing on BHL's strategic plan and just really honoring the work that Grace did. So as many of you know, we are in the process of redefining what user engagement and outreach will look like. And And some key questions for all of us to keep in mind as we reimagine goal 3 of our strategic plan are: how can we grow and mobilize BHL's user base to engage in a way that helps us unify biodiversity knowledge for our planet in peril? Also, how can we reach more diverse audiences in non-English speaking and low bandwidth areas? And then we also would like to define very clearly who are BHL's main stakeholders and users, and how should we prioritize their feedback and feature requests, in particular in a very equitable and transparent and fair way. So I offer some key recommendations for the BHL Consortium to consider in a forthcoming Wikimedia white paper that I've been working on for the last 9 months or so. I hope you will check it out when it publishes this fall. Also, I hope you will participate in the ongoing conversations happening at the annual meeting around Goal 3 and more meetings to come this summer around Goal 3. So please keep all of these questions in mind and please check out that white paper. I would like to also honor and dedicate this presentation to E.O. Wilson, who we lost this year. He was an incredible man and just an incredible source of knowledge and inspiration for so many of us, including myself. And he had so many choice words to say, but I wanted to end the presentation with this quote, which I think really resonates for me right now, which is that we should preserve every scrap of biodiversity as priceless while we learn to use it and come to understand what it means for humanity. So my personal mission as BHL's data manager is to open up and mobilize BHL's data for climate action. And to do so, we will need to shore up our resources, act strategically, and illuminate and deepen our collaborations with the biodiversity community while illuminating BHL's dark data. Together, I know we can preserve our planet for all Earth's creatures, big and small. Thank you, BHL, for having me as your data manager. I really look forward to serving you. And I'll end with that. Have a wonderful day. Thank you.